but I'm now delighted to be joined by the filmmaker and activist Femi Nylander. Femi, thank you for joining me again. You're not necessarily of the same view as me on this.
No, I mean, I think some of today's monologue was quite, I have to say, frankly, a bit silly to say that Britain, by colonizing the world and going out and saying, we now own this land, we now own your people, you have to work for us, your lands belong to us, your labor belongs to us, instilling racial hierarchies was doing these countries a favor. And I also think it's disingenuous to say that I started something, I was the world leader in it, something terrible, the slave trade, and because I ended it, that's a good thing. Also, Britain wasn't the first country where slavery...
But it's simply not true to say that we were the world leader in it. That slavery long predates the British Empire. Femi, you know this. Slavery long predates the British Empire. Slavery was going for thousands of years before the British Empire. The creation of it had nothing to do with the British Empire. And the slave trade involved other nations selling the slaves to the British when they were traded, and they were selling their own people.
Well, actually, if you look at Britain, and this links back to what you were saying the other day about Britain helping to end the slave trade in other places, Britain often did trading for other countries, the same thing you're accusing African countries of doing. Queen Anne was involved in the Asiento de Negros, where basically she ran the slave trade on behalf of Spain. She ran the slave trade on behalf of Spain because Spain wasn't involved in trading, and basically had a monopoly on transporting slaves from Africa to South America for various Spanish colonies. So Britain was involved in that. However, when we look at colonialism, which came after slavery, colonialism is full of evils. You look at the Bengal famines in India, where millions and millions of people died because grain was being exported from India to feed British soldiers in the middle of a famine. You look at the Mau Mau camps in Kenya, which was covered up by the British government and which has now come out again. Torture camps.
You've also got to look at the British bringing fresh water into countries that they were ruling, bringing the railways, bringing a legal system. And I think the mistake you make is that you assume before the British got there was some elaborate, well-established democracy running these countries. There wasn't. If you look at what Napier was doing in Sindh, Napier was overthrowing a totalitarian tyranny that was killing people, and that he was trying to stop that. So I think you're assuming there was a much better prior state than in reality there was.
Well, firstly, the railways that were built, if you actually look at the railways that were built under the colonial time, they usually go from places where there are lots of resources directly to the coast, because the purpose of these railways wasn't to help the citizens of whatever country they happened to be built in. They were to help transport raw goods, oil, gold,
but that brings wealth to the nations.
Out of those countries to be shipped abroad.
And that boosts people's standard of living. That's terrific.
So these railways is a complete misnomer to say that Britain helped people by building railways out of some beneficence or some goodness. Also, a lot of these countries did have complex...
It's not because it helped, hold on just a moment, because it helped bring people out of poverty, and that it helped raise the standard of living, that railways boosted economic activity. And that was one of the great successes of the British Empire, was raising that base level of economic activity.
They boosted theft. They didn't boost economic activity. Even till today, the resources of African countries, which are heavily traded on the London Stock Exchange, do not benefit African people. You have huge amounts of tax evasion on various... I'd invite you to read a report by a company called War on Want, which talks about how
I think you should look at the economy of Botswana. Botswana has the enormous diamond mines, which has made Botswana a very rich country.
And people in the West.
We're going to have to draw stumps there, I'm afraid, but I think you should study Botswana before we talk again. Thank you so much, Femi.